Recently, after over a year, every end was finally verified by Hqmy, or Hamilton. Every end is a over 7-minute long level, meant to be much more accessible to the average player than any other top level. In other words, the gameplay of this level is very simple. It's mostly just timings, and all that's really used in this level are simple spikes and blocks. You know, it's just super long and tons of timing. So today I'll go over my thoughts of the level, the general discussion on whether or not this should get rated, and some responses I got on a poll that I conducted in my community tab, gauging a general community reaction to this level. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like and subscribe. You can always undo it later and it helps the channel out, and without further ado, let's get into the video. So to start off, I do really like the concept of a very accessible top level that people with very differing skill levels can try to get runs on. Specifically, I think the simplicity of the level's decoration, or in some ways lack thereof, sort of reflects the idea of just turning back to the basics, in decoration as well as in gameplay. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of like really old Impossible levels from like the pre-1.9 era, specifically like the Hell series by Sana924, but that theming isn't necessarily just an excuse to make a really long layout and just have it get rated. The background and even the ground are all recreated, and of course there is the background effect that sort of helps add to the feel that obviously this isn't just a layout, it's like this on purpose. It obviously still does look like just a layout, but to be fair, this effect would probably be fairly impossible if it weren't for the simplicity of the decoration. And obviously the effect is the most iconic part of the level, and I think it helps harken back to the very early days of the game without just making it as boring and simple as literally just a layout. So obviously without the background effect, it is pretty much just a layout, and I will admit that does kind of make for a somewhat boring watch. When this level was first revealed, I was still interested in seeing the whole level, but that was mostly because I had never seen it before. So yeah, I guess the concept sort of sacrifices the replayability of watching it through, but honestly, that should be much lower on the priority list than basic stuff like theming, gameplay enjoyability, balancing, etc. The biggest thing that I appreciate about this level is how radically different it is from every other level of its difficulty setting. This is kind of what I'm referring to when I say in my other videos that it should have some reason to exist other than just being difficult. And I think this is a pretty decent example of that, as it has a concept that remains interesting even after this level will inevitably fall down the list. Versus like, I don't know, when was the last time you thought about Abyss of Darkness? Actually, you know what? By the way, comment down below when the last time you thought about Abyss of Darkness was. I'm actually kind of genuinely curious. It has been like almost 3 years since the level was verified. Anyways, overall, I really do appreciate every end and its concept, and especially the pretty flawless execution of that concept. It's at the very least much more memorable and stands out because of how original it is, even if it obviously isn't quite as flashy in the more traditional sense compared to other top levels. So Pyramid Man worship aside, because at least in my eyes, Minecap has never missed ever, most of the discussion around the level is whether or not it should be rated, at least from what I've seen. And at least in my mind, I kind of have two layers to that, because I am still a very big proponent that the rating system is pretty broken, and that while it makes sense that a feature or epic rating would be very difficult to get, a star rate should be fairly easy. Like any finished level that isn't like chock full of racial slurs should just get rated. There's also the layer of the fact that if Minecap didn't make this, it probably would not get rated. Now, of course, it's kind of bold to assume that robtop would even rate it in the first place, considering that he has not been moving very fast when it comes to rating things. Like, it took him several months to rate APT, and also all that for only a feature rating, which is kind of fucked up. But in my mind, at least, I feel like the background effect, even though it's just one singular gimmick, should be enough to get it rated, because my rate standards, or at least my ideal rate standards, are very low. It also kind of brings up the question of how much value is brought on by the concept of the level and the theme, versus how much does this align with the traditional norms for what's considered feature-worthy. And also historically, we've made tons of exceptions, including Silent Clubstep's rate, even though that level looks absolutely abysmal. I think we can apply every end as sort of an exception to the norm, partially because of its difficulty, even though it's just top 5, but also because it's just such a cool concept in my opinion. I think it deserves recognition. Like, obviously, if someone made a similar or identical effect on like a random 7-star, that should probably not get rated. But the main difference between that and every end is the originality. Similarly to how any clone of Silent Clubstep 2, regardless of how impossible it is, would kind of feel really redundant to get rated. I guess in theory you could just say Silent Clubstep was derivative of Silent Club, but I wouldn't characterize it like that. But if that's what you think, just pretend I said Silent Club up for the past minute and a half. The general point I'm kind of getting at here is that I think its originality and uniqueness should be able to compensate for the fact that visually it is a very simple level. If it were completely up to me, it'd probably get a star rate, maybe a feature if I was feeling like just glazing Minecap, but star rate kind of makes more sense. And also, at the end of the day, let's be real, it's just about its placement on the demon list. It's not like rate standards are uniform in the slightest. A few days ago on a community post, I opened a poll asking how much people liked every end, and the majority of people said that it was interesting. Almost 40% of people are Minecap glazers just like me, which even though this is mostly my audience, has to be at least kinda unbiased because I haven't really talked about Minecap that much on this channel, at least recently. I mean, I glazed Limbo, but everyone glazes Limbo because it's peak. And then some people thought it was meh, and like 3% of people thought it was trash, which is like pretty amazing. I did see a good number of comments like this that were saying that it was good, but it didn't necessarily deserve a rate, or maybe it shouldn't be expected to get rated. Which, to be fair, like, no one would care if this got rated if the demon list just placed unrated levels. I love it so much, dude. I don't care that it's a layout because of how interestingly structured and how well made the gameplay is. Not to mention how sick the background is. It adds a really neat atmosphere, so I don't care how simple people find it. Simple, of course, referring to the level, not the people. This pretty much echoes, like, everything that I feel about this level. I honestly think that it's unique enough that, like, it's definitely categorically different than if XN was like, hey, I'm making a cool top 1 that's actually super meta, and then he just made, like, an 8-minute layout. Like, you can tell that effort was put in to make it stand out for the sake of its theming, not just to, like, get a quick top 1 out or something. If that was the goal, then it failed miserably, because this took forever for it to get verified. Also, it's like top 5. It's very creative to make a 6-minute level with only cube gameplay without orbs or portals or size changes and still make every part different. The background is really cool too. But at the end of the day, it's just stereo madness without ship on steroids. I don't know if I would call it like stereo madness on steroids, but to be fair, it is basically just 1.0 decoration. It just kind of feels weird to call it like Stereo Madness because it definitely has more variation in gameplay than Stereo Madness does, obviously. Also, I think because of how simple the decoration is, wouldn't Nepesta be like cracked at this level? He actually did post on Twitter about if people would want him to do a day with every end, so if you can, go like the thing so that he does it. I feel like the level becomes more and more enjoyable the more I watch it or learn about it. At first, it was really boring to me, but now I find it really intriguing, and I hope it gets rated and placed on the demon list. In my opinion, it serves as an excellent reminder of where this game came from, how far we've come, and how simple the game really is, while still being incredibly difficult and rage-inducing. Personally, I'd rather torture myself playing Boomba Woomba or Booba Wamba, whatever, than try beating every end, but I do think it's cool. Shout out to all the masochists with enough willpower to take on this level. Yeah, I can't beat a level that's more than like 2 minutes long, it's not possible. Honestly, I agree with a lot of this sentiment, and I actually kind of feel like maybe I would play the level to try to get some runs, but yes, I would never beat this level even though it is literally built to be accessible to people with bad skill issue problems. Mostly because of exactly what this comment mentions, which is willpower. I do not have the willpower to beat a top 10. Anyways, I will say that I'm glad that, at least from what I've seen, the reception to this level has been pretty positive, and devoid of at least any large drama. And then of course, now that I've said that, robtop will like never rate the level, and then it becomes another Tidal Wave situation, and then Grief gets verified and then not rated, and then everybody dies. Comment down below your thoughts on every end and whether or not you think it should be rated. If you would like to, you can join my Discord server that is definitely active, link is in the description. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, it helps out the channel, obviously. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe, everyone.